5 men entered the depths of the ocean chasing a broken bar, but what they found was silence, darkness, and a tragedy the world will never forget. Was it human ambition, reckless design, or something far more mysterious that claimed the Titan beneath the waves? Tonight, we dive into the haunting truth of the ocean's most shocking disaster. The vastness of the ocean has always drawn humanity closer to the mysteries that lie beneath its surface. For centuries, we have looked at the seas as both a provider of life and a graveyard of secrets. From shipwrecks scattered across the seabed to entire civilizations swallowed by the waters, the ocean remains the most unexplored frontier on Earth. It is said that we know more about the surface of the moon than we do about the depths of our oceans, and perhaps that is why, when tragedies or mysteries unfold beneath the waves, they captivate the imagination of the world. One such event, which shocked millions across the globe, was the ill-fated voyage of the Titan submarine, a vessel that promised a glimpse into history but instead became a symbol of danger, ambition, and unanswered questions. When the Titan set out to explore the wreckage of the RMS Titanic, it wasn't just another deep-sea expedition. It was marketed as a once-in-a-lifetime adventure, the chance to step into a futuristic vessel and descend thousands of feet below the Atlantic Ocean to witness with your own eyes the decaying remains of one of the most famous shipwrecks in history. For some, it was a thrill worth millions of dollars. For others, it was an obsession with connecting to a tragic past. The Titanic had gone down in 1912, and over a century later, its resting place had become a destination, almost like a tourist site, but one so deep and dangerous that only a handful of vessels in the world were capable of reaching it. The Titan submarine was operated by a company called OceanGate, and its founder, Stockton Rush, envisioned himself as a pioneer of exploration. He wanted to democratize deep-sea travel in the same way early aviators dreamed of making air travel accessible to all. But unlike the gradual developments in aviation, deep-sea travel remained risky, experimental, and unforgiving. The ocean floor is an alien environment, a place of unimaginable pressure where even the smallest technical failure can mean death. Yet, for Stockton Rush, the risks were worth taking. He once stated that safety is pure waste, a comment that now haunts the memory of the Titan. His philosophy was not about avoiding risks but about pushing through them, believing that great breakthroughs required great gambles. On the morning the Titan submarine disappeared, 5 people were aboard: Stockton Rush himself, the French Titanic expert Paul-Henri Nargeolet, British billionaire Hamish Harding, Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood, and his 19-year-old son, Sulman. Each man had his own reason for being there. Some wanted adventure, some wanted to pay homage to history, and others simply wanted to experience what very few humans had ever seen. As the Titan began its descent into the icy waters of the North Atlantic, no one could have predicted the tragedy that would unfold. Communication was lost less than 2 hours into the dive. At first, those monitoring the descent thought it was a temporary glitch, something that happens often in extreme environments. But as time passed, it became clear something had gone terribly wrong. The Titan had vanished without a trace. What followed was a massive international search effort, one of the most expensive and high-profile rescue operations in maritime history. The U.S. Coast Guard, the Canadian Navy, and even private companies rushed to the scene, deploying sonar, ships, aircraft, and remote-operated vehicles. The world's eyes were glued to news outlets, as experts and commentators speculated on what might have happened. Did the Titan get tangled in the wreckage of the Titanic? Was it stranded at the bottom of the ocean, or had it imploded under the crushing pressure of the deep sea? The pressure at the depth of the Titanic wreck is about 400 times greater than atmospheric pressure at sea level. At such depth, even the smallest weakness in a vessel can cause catastrophic failure. The Titan was built using unconventional materials, including carbon fiber, which many experts had long warned was unsuitable for repeated dives to such depths. Unlike titanium or steel, carbon fiber could weaken over time under pressure, creating microcracks invisible to the naked eye. Stockton Rush dismissed these concerns, believing innovation was more important than regulation. But when the Titan disappeared, those warnings resurfaced like ghosts, demanding to be heard. For 4 days, the search continued, fueled by the hope that perhaps the Titan was still intact somewhere deep below, with its passengers alive but trapped. Reports surfaced that banging sounds had been detected in the area, raising hopes that the crew was signaling for help. Families clung to the possibility that rescuers might reach the sub in time, but deep down, many experts knew the grim truth: survival under such conditions was unlikely. If the Titan had imploded, it would have been instantaneous. The lives of the 5 men extinguished in less than a second. On the 5th day, the search came to a tragic conclusion. Debris from the Titan was discovered near the wreck of the Titanic, confirming that the submarine had indeed suffered a catastrophic implosion. The 5 passengers were declared dead, and the world mourned the loss while questioning how such a tragedy could have been allowed to happen. But even as the official cause was stated as implosion, mysteries remained. Some questioned the construction of the Titan, asking why regulatory agencies had not stepped in to prevent it from operating. Others wondered about the warning signs that had been ignored. Employees who raised safety concerns, engineers who predicted potential failure, and even passengers who had backed out after sensing the risk. There were whispers that Stockton Rush had been warned by several experts, yet chose to move forward anyway. The tragedy of the Titan seemed not just like an accident, but the inevitable result of arrogance meeting nature's unforgiving laws. The allure of the Titanic also played a major role in the disaster. More than a century after the great ship sank, it continues to hold a grip on the human imagination. Thousands of books, films, and documentaries have been made about it. Tourists flock to museums to see artifacts recovered from the wreck. For some, seeing the Titanic in person was the ultimate experience, and OceanGate capitalized on this fascination. The Titan was marketed as a vessel for those who wanted to touch history, to go beyond the ordinary and step into the extraordinary. Tickets for the expedition cost $250,000 each, a price tag that signaled both exclusivity and danger. The very idea of paying such a sum for a seat in an untested vessel says much about human ambition and curiosity. For the wealthy, the ocean became a playground where money could buy access to forbidden places. But nature cannot be bribed, and the ocean does not bend to human desire. The Titan became a reminder that our technology is still vulnerable, that the sea can still claim lives despite our advances. This was not the first time explorers had died chasing the depths. Throughout history, submariners, divers, and adventurers have risked their lives in pursuit of discovery. Some have succeeded, mapping parts of the seabed, discovering new species, or recovering treasures. Others, like the crew of the Titan, paid with their lives. In the aftermath, debates raged across media outlets and among experts. Should tourism to dangerous places like the Titanic be banned? Should private companies be allowed to conduct deep-sea exploration without strict oversight? Was the Titan disaster an isolated case, or was it a warning sign of a growing problem where innovation outpaces regulation? Some compared the Titan to the early days of aviation, when crashes were common and pioneers took enormous risks to advance the technology. Supporters of OceanGate argued that every great leap in exploration carries danger, and that without risk-takers, humanity would never move forward. Critics, however, pointed out that aviation evolved through a combination of daring and discipline, with strict engineering standards eventually making it safe. The Titan, they argued, lacked that discipline. It was more of a prototype than a proven vessel, and yet it was carrying passengers into one of the most hostile environments on Earth. Families of the victims faced the unbearable pain of losing loved ones in such a tragic and public way. For Shahzada and Seaman Dawood, it was especially heartbreaking, as the father and son had embarked on the journey together, only for it to end in death. Reports later surfaced that Seaman had been hesitant to go, but joined the expedition as a Father's Day gift to his dad. That detail alone broke the hearts of millions, showing how behind the headlines were deeply personal human stories. The Titan disaster also highlighted the dangers of hubris. Stockton Rush saw himself as a visionary, someone breaking boundaries, but vision without caution can lead to tragedy. In interviews before his death, he dismissed rules and certifications, claiming they slowed down progress. Yet, those very rules exist because lives are at stake. The ocean does not forgive mistakes, and the Titan became the ultimate lesson in humility before nature. Still, mysteries linger. Was the implosion truly instantaneous, sparing the passengers from suffering? Or did they endure moments of terror before the end? Were the banging sounds heard during the search genuine signals from the Titan, or were they simply the echoes of the ocean playing tricks on sonar equipment? Why were warnings ignored, and what does this say about our society's obsession with pushing boundaries at any cost? The Titan story is not just about a submarine, it is about human nature. We are drawn to danger, fascinated by the forbidden, and willing to risk everything for the thrill of the unknown. But as the Titan reminds us, the ocean is not a theme park, it is a vast, merciless expanse where life is fragile and mistakes are fatal. The wreck of the Titanic claimed 1,500 lives in 1912, and over a century later, it claimed 5 more. Perhaps this is its curse, a reminder etched into the depths that history is not to be tampered with lightly. The images of the Titan, a small carbon fiber tube with cramped seating and limited controls, now haunt the imagination. The knowledge that 5 men climbed inside that vessel and were never seen alive again chills us to the core. Their fate was sealed the moment they descended, though no one realized it at the time. And yet, despite the tragedy, there are still those who dream of returning to the Titanic's resting place, proving that the human spirit, reckless as it may be, will always chase the unknown. As the first part of this story ends, one cannot help but wonder what the legacy of the Titan will be. Will it be remembered as a cautionary tale, a reminder that arrogance can lead to disaster? Or will it be seen as just another chapter in humanity's endless quest to explore, no matter the cost? The answers lie not just in the wreckage at the bottom of the sea, but in the choices we make moving forward. For now, the mystery of the Titan remains, a blend of tragedy, fascination, and the eternal lure of the deep. Even after the world accepted the official explanation that the Titan suffered a catastrophic implosion, the questions refused to die. For some, it was not enough to accept that a modern submersible, built with advanced materials and piloted by experienced hands, could simply shatter like glass in the cold silence of the Atlantic. Conspiracy theories began to spread almost instantly, fueled by the secrecy of deep-sea exploration and the global media frenzy that had surrounded the search. People asked whether the Titan's implosion was truly accidental or whether it had been a predictable failure that had been ignored by those with power and money. Some pointed out that OceanGate had allegedly bypassed traditional safety regulations, avoiding the scrutiny of government agencies by operating as a private company. Unlike commercial aircraft or passenger ships, the Titan had no certification from recognized authorities. The very fact that wealthy clients were being charged hundreds of thousands of dollars to board an experimental vessel without full regulatory approval sparked suspicion. Was this negligence, recklessness, or something darker? Whispers began to circulate that perhaps OceanGate had deliberately avoided oversight, knowing that certification would expose flaws in its design. Others found it suspicious that the tragedy occurred so close to the wreck of the Titanic, itself a symbol of human arrogance and the price of ignoring warnings. Was there a symbolic curse attached to the Titanic, a kind of poetic justice that punished those who dared to turn tragedy into tourism? Some believers in the supernatural saw it as no coincidence, arguing that the Titanic had already claimed enough lives and would continue to demand more from anyone who disturbed its watery grave. Rational minds dismissed this as myth, but history has always shown how legends grow stronger in the aftermath of disaster. There were also questions about the banging noises that search teams reported hearing during the rescue effort. At regular intervals, sonar detected sounds that seemed deliberate, almost like signals. Families clung to these reports, hoping they were evidence that their loved ones were alive inside the sub, tapping desperately against the hull. When the Coast Guard later announced that the Titan had imploded, skeptics demanded an explanation. If the sub had been destroyed almost instantly, then what were those banging sounds? Some argued they could have been noises from other equipment in the area, or the natural shifting of the Titanic wreck itself. But for others, the possibility remained that the Titan had survived longer than officials admitted, and that the passengers might have been trapped in darkness, slowly running out of oxygen. This theory opened up an even more chilling line of thought. If the Titan had not imploded instantly, then its passengers would have endured hours of terror in complete darkness, with no communication and no way to escape. Imagine the psychological torment of being trapped 2.5 miles beneath the surface, surrounded by freezing water, listening to the creaks of the vessel as the pressure mounted, and knowing that air was running out. That scenario, while horrifying, is also one that many viewers could not stop imagining. Some documentaries dramatized it, with haunting recreations of the final hours. For families, it was unbearable to consider, but for the public, it became part of the grim fascination with this story. The Titan mystery also raises questions about how far humanity is willing to go in pursuit of exploration. The passengers aboard were not scientists conducting research for the betterment of humanity. They were adventurers, thrill-seekers, and wealthy individuals who paid for an experience. Critics argued that their deaths were unnecessary, the result of vanity and indulgence. Others countered that exploration has always been driven by those willing to risk everything for personal reasons. After all, the early mountaineers who climbed Everest, or the astronauts who ventured into space, were not always pursuing purely scientific goals. Some were chasing glory, others curiosity, and others simply the thrill of doing what no one else had done. The Titan tragedy, then, is part of that same lineage, a reminder that great risks often come with great costs. Still, the way the Titan was designed continues to puzzle experts. The use of a video game controller to pilot the submersible became a symbol of amateurism in the eyes of the public. Memes spread online mocking the idea that a $250,000 trip relied on such a device. But the truth is more nuanced. Custom-made joysticks can be unreliable, while mass-produced controllers are often tested rigorously for durability. Yet the optics were damning. It looked like corners were being cut. Every detail about the Titan's construction, from its small size to its bolted hatch that required external crews to open it, was scrutinized and criticized. The vessel had been compared to a tin can, and many wondered how anyone could feel safe inside it. There were even theories that the Titan was not destroyed by natural pressure but by sabotage. Some speculated that rival companies in the field of deep-sea exploration might have had motives to see OceanGate fail. Others, more imaginative, suggested that the Titanic itself, as a historical site, might have defenders who did not want it turned into a tourist attraction. While such theories lack evidence, they gained traction simply because the Titan operated in secrecy, and because deep-sea exploration feels like a hidden world, far removed from the transparency we expect on land. In the absence of concrete answers, the human mind often fills the void with speculation. The Titan disaster also reflects something deeper about modern society, the way wealth and privilege can open doors to extreme experiences, but not necessarily to safety. Each of the passengers had paid an extraordinary sum for their seat. To most people, such an amount could buy a house or change a life, yet for the ultra-wealthy, it was the price of an adventure. This raises ethical questions. Should money give someone access to dangerous places that rescue teams then risk their lives to reach if things go wrong? Should the public have to pay for massive search operations when private companies choose to gamble with safety? These debates continue long after the wreckage was found, with some arguing that regulations must prevent such disasters in the future. Psychologically, the Titan story taps into one of humanity's oldest fears: being trapped and powerless in an environment we cannot survive in. The deep sea has always been a setting for nightmares. It is silent, dark, and crushing, a place where humans do not belong. Horror films often use the ocean as a backdrop for good reason. It represents both the unknown and the uncontrollable. The Titan tragedy, real and raw, brought those fears into the headlines. People could not stop imagining what it would feel like to be inside that small vessel, sinking into blackness, hearing the groans of the hull, and then a broken bar. Nothing. That fear, more than anything, explains why the story spread like wildfire across the globe. Yet, there is also an undeniable fascination. Even after the Titan's implosion, interest in the Titanic wreck remains as strong as ever. People still dream of visiting it, of touching history with their own eyes. This suggests that the lesson may not have been learned. As long as there are people willing to pay, companies will find ways to take them down. And as long as the Titanic rests at the bottom of the ocean, it will continue to attract the curious, the adventurous, and the reckless. Perhaps this is human nature, our desire to reach forbidden places, to test the limits of what is possible, even if it kills us. One of the lingering mysteries is whether the Titan's legacy will bring about change in how deep-sea exploration is conducted. Will future companies be forced to adhere to stricter rules, or will this tragedy fade into memory, only to be repeated again? History suggests that disasters often lead to reform, but only after much loss. The Titanic itself led to changes in maritime safety laws, such as requiring enough lifeboats for all passengers. The Titan may play a similar role, forcing the world to recognize that the ocean is not a playground for unregulated experimentation. Another strange twist in the story lies in how quickly the Titan disappeared from the news cycle. For a few weeks, it dominated headlines. Then, as soon as the implosion was confirmed, attention shifted elsewhere. Some argue this was deliberate, that the full truth was never revealed because it would expose embarrassing details about safety violations, financial motives, or government oversight failures. In a world where information is controlled and filtered, it is not surprising that people believe parts of the story remain hidden. The Titan tragedy also invites comparison with space exploration. Billionaires like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Richard Branson have all pursued ventures into space tourism. Their projects face similar criticisms: unsafe, experimental, and driven by ego more than science. The ocean and outer space share similarities as they are both hostile, unexplored frontiers that humans dream of conquering. The Titan reminds us that exploration can inspire, but it can also destroy. It is the same duality that makes stories like this so compelling. In the end, the mystery of the Titan is not just about how it was destroyed. It is about why it existed at all, why people were willing to climb inside, why the warnings were ignored, and why the ocean still has such a hold on our imagination. The 5 men aboard the Titan became part of a story larger than themselves. Their death symbolized both the fragility of human life and the boundless ambition of the human spirit. Whether they died instantly in an implosion or endured slow suffocation in darkness, their fate is now tied to the legend of the Titanic itself. And so, the Titan rests in pieces near the wreck it was meant to visit, another monument to human arrogance lying silently at the bottom of the sea. The ocean keeps its secrets well. It swallowed the Titanic in 1912, it swallowed the Titan in 2023, and it will continue to swallow ships, planes, and people who underestimate its power. That is the ultimate mystery, and not just what happened to the Titan, but why we continue to challenge forces so much greater than ourselves. Perhaps it is because, deep down, we know that exploration is the essence of being human. Or perhaps it is because we cannot resist the temptation of the unknown, even when it leads us to our doom. The Titan may be gone, but its story will linger for generations. Children will hear of the billionaires who boarded a fragile submarine to see the Titanic and never returned. Documentaries will replay the search, the false hope of the banging sounds, and the shocking discovery of debris. Writers will speculate about what really happened, whether there were moments of awareness before the end, whether the curse of the Titanic is real, and whether humanity will ever learn from its mistakes. The truth lies 2.5 miles beneath the waves, locked away in silence, guarded by the crushing weight of the deep. And maybe that is the most haunting part of all. We will never fully know. The Titan's last moments belong only to those 5 men, and the ocean has claimed them forever. All we can do is imagine, question, and tell the story again and again, until it becomes part of legend. Another reminder that mystery, tragedy, and human ambition are inseparable.